गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका दोबारा स्वागत है। वणकम, सत श्री अकाल। आज हम एक बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट विषय के ऊपर चर्चा करेंगे। वो है चाइना तिब्बत पॉलिसी सिंस 18th पार्टी कांग्रेस। राइट। इसका मतलब चाइना का क्या रवैया है तिब्बत के बारे में और उसको कैसे अमल करता है तिब्बत के अंदर। और इसके बारे में बात करने के लिए मेरे साथ है मिसेस आपा लामो। वेलकम, गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू द शो आपा।
थैंक यू सर।
राइट। मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूँ कि मिसेस आपा लामा जो है वो टिबेटन है। वो तिब्बत में पैदा हुई थी, पर इनका पढ़ाई पूरा अपने दिल्ली में हुआ। इन्होंने अपना पॉलिटिकल साइंस किया मिरांडा हाउस से और उसके बाद पीएचडी किया जेएनयू से। राइट। आजकल वो रिसर्च स्कॉलर हैं सीसीएएस में, राइट, सेंटर फॉर चाइना स्टडीज, राइट, और एंड स्ट्रेटजी। उसमें इन्होंने इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे बहुत कॉन्फ्रेंसेस अटेंड किया है। यहाँ तक ये यूरोपियन पार्लियामेंट में जाके इन्होंने ट्रेनिंग भी किया, ब्रुसेल, स्ट्रासबर्ग वगैरह में, और इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंसेस में जाके जापान, न्यूयॉर्क वगैरह में इन्होंने अपना प्रेजेंट किया पेपर्स जो तिब्बत के बारे में लिखा है। और मैं सोचता हूँ कि आज हमारा ये सौभाग्य है कि वो आए हमारे पास और हमारे साथ बात करेंगे तिब्बत के बारे में। जी जिनपिंग किस तरीके से तिब्बत को रोन रहा है, साफ मैं बताऊं तो, राइट। और मैं ज्यादा बात नहीं करना चाहता हूँ इससे ज्यादा, और मैं सिर्फ यही है दोबारा वेलकम टुडे इवनिंग आपा। If you can speak in Hindi, fine. If you cannot speak in Hindi, you can speak in English. ठीक? So don't worry. Okay? And allot time if you give me a little this thing. If you can speak in English, at the end of each slide, just pause. I'll translate a few issues into Hindi so that those people who know only Hindi can understand what you're speaking. Right? With this, over to you. And yeah, with your opening words, then you tell me when you want your slides. I'll get them on. All yours.
Okay, so thank you so much for inviting me to speak on Gunner's Shot. So let me begin my presentation.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So as Sir said, the title of my presentation would be China's Tibet policy since the 18th Party Congress. And the framework of the presentation would be so I'll be briefly introduce the title, and then I'll talk about the current situation in Tibet, then the propaganda campaigns that the CCP is carrying out in Tibet, and then their efforts to Sinicize Tibetan Buddhism, and then the role, enhanced role actually of the United Front Health Department and the Public Security Bureau. And then finally, I'll focus on China's increased attention to Tibet's borders. Next slide, please, sir. Sorry.
Yeah, don't worry. If you want to take a break, go take a break. Keep that fellow a little silent. And
Yeah, so
no problem.
Okay, my pet is
Yeah,
just
that's okay. Don't worry.
Okay, so when Xi Jinping replaced Hu Jintao as the General Secretary of the CCP in 2012, some in the Tibetan community in exile in India were hopeful and sanguine for a potential change in China's Tibet policy, owing to Xi Jinping's family's connection with Tibet and Tibetan Buddhism. So the Dalai Lama had said in an interview given to Reuters in September 2012 that he had a special relationship once with Xi's father, Shi Tongshun, to whom the Dalai Lama said he had given an expensive watch in 1954 when he visited Beijing. So the Dalai Lama also described Shi's father as quote unquote very friendly, comparatively more open-minded, and he also said that Xi's wife, Xi Jinping's wife, Pen Liyuan, is a follower of Tibetan Buddhism, and that when Xi Jinping's mother was like passed away, she was buried with the rites of Tibetan or rites or rituals of Tibetan Buddhism. Unfortunately, like His Holiness, like His Holiness, many in the Tibetan community hope for a reformist approach to the Tibet question, but that hope by His Holiness and the Tibetans at large was soon kind of evaporated into thin air. Because with the coming of Xi Jinping, they are even stricter, tighter sort of nets in the sky, straps on the ground, kind of surveillance systems installed in Tibet, sorry, and then control over Tibetans have increased. So at present, if you can turn on the next page, sir.
Yeah.
Um, so at present, the situation in Tibet has become from bad to worse, particularly since the Tibetan uprising in 2008. And then in 2009, a new wave of protests started in the form of self-immolations. And then in 2011, there was this appointment of a soldier turned politician known by the name Chen Konkwa as the party secretary of Tibet, of what is called as the Tibet Autonomous Region. So he was the party secretary of TAR from 2011 to 2016, and then he implemented a lot of repressive, a kind of laboratory of repression, systems, empowered by massive surveillance systems. And then yeah, so with those kind of repression and uh, controls, the situation has in Tibet Autonomous Region as well as in other parts of Tibet, including in Sichuan, Qinghai, Gansu, and Yunnan, has become so critical that the very survival of the Tibetan language, culture, and identity are at significant risk of erasure through different policy measures being implemented by the Chinese communist functionaries in Tibet. So, in addition to the repression of human rights, the Chinese government is implementing multiple propaganda campaigns that aim to indoctrinate Tibetans with Chinese nationalism, then Chinese implementation of the Potonghua, which is the Chinese language, and then they are efforts to sinicize Tibetan Buddhism, and even multiple campaigns to break the very cohesion of Tibetans and their identity, culture, and language. And also, there are initiatives being taken to change the very narrative of Tibet as a nation. So in 2009, if you can see the screen, on February 2007, February 27, 2009, the first self-immolation by a Tibetan in Tibet carried out by Tape. He was a monk, a 20-year-old uh, monk, and he was from Kiti Monastery, and he self-immolated. And till date, around 168 Tibetans, both inside and outside, have self-immolated against, meaning they have burnt themselves against China's illegal occupation of Tibet. Next slide, sir.
या मैं
Okay.
संक्षिप्त में बताना चाहता हूँ कि आज अभी तक उन्होंने जो बताया है कि शी जिनपिंग का कुछ नाता था तिब्बत के साथ, राइट। दलाई लामा जी जो हैं वो शी जिनपिंग के पिताजी को जानते थे, और शी जिनपिंग का जो बीवी है वो भी बीवी और उसके माताजी भी वो तिब्बतन राइट्स को मानते थे। तो कुछ उम्मीद था, पर जैसे शी जिनपिंग आया उस उम्मीद के ऊपर पानी फेर दिया, और ये जो इतने कम्युनिस्ट हैं वो अत्याचार करने शुरू किया तिब्बत के ऊपर। और इस अत्याचार में सिर्फ नॉर्मल अत्याचार नहीं, इनका वो जो कल्चर है, इनका भाषा है, इनका रहन सहन है, इनका पूरा जिंदगी जिस तरीके से तिब्बत के लोग जीते हैं वो उसको बदली करने के चक्कर में है, राइट। और इसके तहत 2007, 8, 9 में काफी राइट्स हुए थे तिब्बत के अंदर, और इन्होंने बहुत तिब्बत चाइना वालों ने, यानी खास करके कम्युनिस्ट ने, वो उन्होंने अपना कम्युनिज्म जो तिब्बत के ऊपर थोपना शुरू किया, राइट। और तिब्बतिज्म, तिब्बतन कम्युनिज्म जो है तिब्बतन अपना बुद्धिज्म के ऊपर भी इन्होंने थोपना शुरू किया, जिसके तहत ये जितने इनके जो लामा थे वो भी परेशान हुए। और इन्होंने ये जैसे इन्होंने बताया स्टेबिलिटी मेंटेनेंस फोर्स मोबिलाइजेशन ट्रेनिंग भी शुरू किया, एक पूरा एक कार्यक्रम, ताकि तिब्बत को अपने काबू में बिल्कुल सख्ती के साथ रखे। और 2009 में यहाँ तक कि एक आदमी ने अपने आप को जला लिया, वो एक लामा था, राइट, तापे, वो कीर्ति मॉनेस्ट्री में। वहां से अभी तक तकरीबन 168, राइट, लोग अपने आप को जला चुके हैं, राइट, और सेल्फ इमोलेशन कर चुके हैं। और जो चाइना जो है हर तरीका अपनाता है कि तिब्बतन बुद्धिज्म को ही बिल्कुल मिटाने के लिए, राइट। और ये एक संगीन स्थिति है जो आगे आपा जी बताएंगे। प्लीज गो अहेड।
Okay, so as I said in my introduction, that there was this appointment of Chen Konkwa as so he was a former soldier, and he became the TAR party secretary from 2011 to 2016, and he later became the party secretary of Xinjiang. So when he was appointed as the party secretary, he had implemented a lot of surveillance systems, and one of which was the grid-style social management system of surveillance. So what is this about? Is that so all the urban communities in TAR were divided into geometric zones so that it becomes easier for the security staff to observe the activities of the people with the help of new technologies. So this grid style social management system of surveillance focuses on profiling and targeting individuals who they deem as potential problem or troublemakers for the Chinese government. So this would include Tibetans who have faith for the Dalai Lama, who have aspirations for Tibetan independence, and those who could have returned from India, etc. And then he had also established convenience police stations. So this he had set up at every 500 meters uh, because he and his authority was of the opinion that if they set up convenience police stations at every 500 meters, the response time to an incident, or say for instance a self-immolation by a Tibetan against China's rule, within 3 to 4 minutes. So as of 2016, he had established 700 of these convenience police stations in so-called Tibet Autonomous Region. Then in May 2013, he had again established um, this advanced double-linked household system. So this is a network of a typical Orwellian kind of spying system, wherein people, Tibetans or people spy against their like
own
uh,
families,
families, against their
friends.
relatives, friends, yeah, and then and another initiatives that he took was to increase employment of police officers. So between 2007 to 2011, the TAR authorities had advertised vacancies for 2,830 positions for all type of police officers.
राइट। क्या ये बता रहे हैं कि ये जो चेन क्वांगजो, इसका जो पिक्चर यहाँ लेफ्ट में दिखाया गया, इसने क्या किया है, ग्रिड सिस्टम बना दिया, पूरा तिब्बत को बांट दिया और छोटे छोटे इलाकों में बांट दिया, और हर एक इलाकों में एक ऑब्जर्वेशन, इनका निगरानी रखने के लिए इन्होंने एक सिस्टम शुरू किया। तकरीबन हर 500 गज के ऊपर एक पुलिस स्टेशन स्थापित कर दिया इन्होंने। तकरीबन 2016 तक 700 पुलिस स्टेशन इन्होंने स्थापित कर दिया, और लोगों को ऐसे प्रोत्साहन किया कि वो लोग अपने घर के अंदर ही स्पाइंग करते थे, दोस्तों के ऊपर निगरानी रख के ये कम्युनिस्ट वालों को बताते थे। और तकरीबन 2-3 हजार, यानी सिर्फ 4 साल के अंदर 207 और 211 के बीच में तकरीबन 3,000 पुलिस ऑफिसर इन्होंने दाखिल किया। और क्या किया इन्होंने कि तिब्बत में ही टिबेटन्स को ही इस्तेमाल करते हुए इनका जो पूरा सोसाइटी है उनको तोड़ दिया, ताकि वो अपने आप में एक दूसरे के साथ लड़े और एक दूसरे के साथ बात करें और एक दूसरे के साथ को चाइनीज कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी को बता दें। राइट, उसके बाद उन्होंने प्रोपेगेंडा वगैरह किया, जिस जो अभी आपा जी बताएंगे।
Okay, so at present, the Chinese communist functionaries in Tibet has implemented a lot of propaganda campaigns, which are aimed at changing narratives of Tibetan history, Tibetan culture, and Tibetan identity, and then also, aimed at promoting assimilation of Tibetans into what they call as socialist society with Chinese characteristics in the new era, and all like some of these, as you can see from the slide, they are establishing, promoting residential schools or colonial boarding schools for Tibetan children, and there the medium of both dialectical and instruction are Potonghua, the Chinese language, and then the Chinese authorities in Tar has Tibet. Tar and other parts of Tibet have established culture stations, so to propagate Chinese culture, to to foster what they call as the communal sense of Chinese nation, basically Chinese nationalism. And then they also there are a number of initiatives to promote ethnic unity, Han, non-Han, Tibetans, and then there are campaigns to synthesize Tibetan Buddhism, and then a lot of campaigns actually. As you can see, there are campaigns of four consciousness, four standards, three consciousness, five key tasks, two maintenances, and two establishments. So all the tar as well as the party cadres in other parts of Tibet are obliged to abide by all these campaigns. And then the role of the United Front Work Department and the Public Security Bureau has increased over the years, and 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 then eventually especially with the border clashes with India, the attention on Tibet's border, particularly with India, has increased in the recent years.
तो आप देख रहे हैं कि इन्होंने क्या है कि कम्युनिस्ट वालों ने एक बड़ा कठोर तरीके से और सिस्टमैटिकली वो बदली करना चाहते हैं पूरा वातावरण को, तिब्बत के वातावरण को, राइट। और ये यहाँ स्कूल एस्टेब्लिश किया, वहाँ लैंग्वेज जो स्कूल में पढ़ाते हैं वो भी बदली कर दिया। वो अभी आजकल चाइनीज से टिबेटन पढ़ाया नहीं जाता है। उनका जो कल्चर है, चाइना का कल्चर है, ये तिब्बत के ऊपर थोप रहे हैं, राइट। और चाइना नेशन के हिस्सा बनाना चाहते हैं। आपको यहाँ मैं बताना चाहता हूँ, अगर आप हिस्ट्री देखोगे, अगर आप चाइना का हिस्ट्री देखोगे तो तिब्बत कभी चाइना का हिस्सा नहीं था। जब भी चाइना में कोई राज्य बड़ा ताकतवर निकला तो उस वक्त क्या है, तिब्बत चाइना का हिस्सा था। जब चाइना के अंदर राजा या वो डायनेस्टी में कमजोरी थी तो तिब्बत अलग हो जाता था। और इनका जो रिलेशनशिप है, ये माना जाता है वन ऑफ सुजरैनिटी। सुजरैनिटी का मतलब क्या है कि तिब्बत वाले मानते हैं कि हाँ, आप राजा हो, आपको हम कुछ टैक्स वगैरह देंगे और हम अपना हर एक चीज इंडिपेंडेंटली करेंगे, राइट। आप हमारे से बड़े हो, इतने ही मानते हैं। इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि हम आपके हिस्सा है। ये इतिहास में ये लिखा हुआ है। दूसरी बात आपको बताना चाहता हूँ, तिब्बत क्यों अलग है। तिब्बत इसीलिए अलग माना जाता है और ऐतिहासिक, आप सोचिए, ये जो ग्रेट वॉल ऑफ चाइना जो है वो दर्शाता है चाइना कहाँ तक है। अगर आप किसी मैप को देखोगे, कोई ग्रेट वॉल ऑफ चाइना तिब्बत के अंदर नहीं था, या चाइना जो है, ये तिब्बत जो है किसी ग्रेट वॉल के अंदर नहीं था। ग्रेट वॉल के जो बाहर का इलाका चाइना का नहीं है, और तिब्बत जो है ग्रेट वॉल ऑफ चाइना के बाहर है। इससे साफ जाहिर होता है ऐतिहासिक रूप से तिब्बत चाइना का नहीं, हिस्सा नहीं है। पर इसको इलीगल तरीके से चाइना वालों ने 1959 से ऑक्यूपाई कर लिया। ठीक, ओके, राइट।
Okay, so I'll be speaking more about
या
the initiative as
या
we go on. And so, in the previous slide, if you remember, I spoke about these residential schools, or in other words, colonial boarding schools. So, there was this investigative report published by the Tibet Action Institute in December 2021, in which they have reported that Tibetan students are separated from their families and are subjected to highly politicized education. So they're primarily taught in Chinese language. And then, according to Chinese official data collected by the Tibet Action Institute, nearly 800,000 Tibetan children between the age of 6 to 18, even as young as 4, are living in colonial boarding schools. And at this colonial boarding schools, the teachers obviously, like, they speak only in Mandarin, and then conduct all school curriculums in Mandarin, including the nursery rhymes and bedtime stories. So these, colonial boarding schools are like creating problems for the Tibetans. These Tibetan students, uh, when they come to home, because they are not able to communicate with their grandparents, their parents, because they have almost forgotten the Tibetan language. And even more than that, they are facing difficulties when they join the primary school at the age of 7. So these colonial boarding schools, uh, you know, uh, are not only trying to indoctrinate Tibetan children with the Chinese, as I spoke earlier, Chinese nationalism or the communal sense of Chinese nation, And then they're being indoctrinated with Chinese, identity, Chinese history, Chinese culture, and they're not taught Tibetan history and about Tibetan culture and identity in these colonial boarding schools.
या ये जो ये जो इन्होंने अभी मैं बताया है एक बड़ा संगीन मामला है, क्योंकि ये चाइना वालों ने पूरा तिब्बत के अंदर ये कॉलोनियल बोर्डिंग स्कूल शुरू किया है। इस बोर्डिंग स्कूल में क्या है कि बच्चों को, जो 4 वर्ष के बच्चों को अपने घर से छीन लेते हैं और ये स्कूल में डाल देते हैं। और इन स्कूलों में 4 वर्ष से, ये 6 से 18 इन्होंने बताया है, 4 के बारे में जिक्र किया है। मैंने और भी वीडियो देखा है और जहाँ ये बताते हैं कि 4 वर्ष के बच्चों को स्कूल में डाल देते हैं, माँ बाप से अलग कर देते हैं, इनको मातृभाषा जो टिबेटन है उससे बात करने नहीं देते। ये नहीं कि चाइना में बात कर, चाहे पैन चाइनीज में बात करो, नहीं, इनको टिबेटन से मना करते हैं बात करने के लिए, इतना सख्त है। और इनके जितने टीचर हैं वो सिर्फ मैंडरिन में बात करते हैं। और पूरा जो इनका जो कहानियां हैं, लोकप्रिय कहानियां हैं, वो सब चाइना के हैं, तिब्बत का कोई हिस्सा नहीं होता। और खास करके ये क्या है कि ये बच्चे को ऐसे पढ़ा रहे हैं, पट्टी पढ़ा रहे हैं कि वो हो सकते हैं तिब्बत, और उनको टिबेटन नहीं आता। सिर्फ उनको इस तरीके से वो सफाई कर रहे हैं टिबेटन का जो पूरा कल्चर है, कि ये एक बहुत ही डेंजरस सिचुएशन और एक बहुत कठोर तरीके से ये चाइना वाले कर रहे हैं। ये है चाइना का कम्युनिज्म और चाइना वाले। ओके, प्लीज कैरी ऑन।
Okay, and then another heavily campaign that's been carried out in Tibet is this effort to sinicize Tibetan Buddhism. So the attempts to neutralize and dissipate the Dalai Lama's influence. Tibetans are by nature quite religious, and their faith to the Dalai Lama is palpable. And so, what China is trying to do is to neutralize the Dalai Lama and dissipate the Dalai Lama's influence on the daily lives of Tibetans in Tibet. So they're not allowed to keep photograph of the Dalai Lama. Then reincarnations of all the lamas, tukus, and rinpoches needs the approval of the CCP, Communist Party of China. Then all the monks, the restrictions on monastic institutions in Tibet are immense, and the all the monks and nuns are obliged or are mandated to follow these four standards, uh, you know, which are to follow the party, to listen to the party, to act as bridge between the people and the party, and then to feel grateful to the party. So these four standards are made mandatory across religious institutions, monasteries and nuns in Tibet, and all the monks and nuns are, if they don't, so they are obliged to implement this campaign, four standards campaign. And then the role of the China appointed Pancha Lama, Gensen Nabu, his role has been increased, especially in recent years, to present to the Tibetans that he is the real Pancha Lama and that they should also be faithful to him. So he has been visiting Tibet from Beijing. He's also the vice president of the China branch of Tibet Buddhist Association, and he has been visiting Tibet on a regular basis almost every year. So sometimes he spends, earlier he used to spend around 15 days, then later it has been increased. His visits have been increased to 1 month, 2 months, and even lately, 3, 4 months. So while in Tibet, he goes for inspections to different, cities and counties of Tibet. Then he meets Tibetans, and then also do this Buddhist teachings, and then he also visits the seats of the Panchen Lama, the 10 Panchen Lama, and also the Panchen Lama who was abducted by the Dalai Lama, or by the Chinese Communist Party, and who was recognized by the Dalai Lama. He visits the official monastery of Teshin Hongpo in Shikhatse whenever he comes to um, Tibet.
राइट। तो देखिए, ये जो चाइना जो है और शी जिनपिंग क्या कर रहे हैं कि पूरा बुद्धिज्म को बदली कर रहे हैं उनकी तरफ से। और उन्होंने नियुक्त किया है दलाई लामा को टेररिस्ट नियुक्त किया है। ये देखिए, एक नोबेल प्राइज जो जीता हुआ आदमी, उसको इन्होंने, वो बोलते हैं टेररिस्ट। और उसका नाम और निशान पूरा टिबेटन सोसाइटी में और इनके जो मोनेस्ट्रीज में है और गुम्पा में है, लामास को पूरा मिटा रहे हैं। और उसकी जगह वो क्या है, वो उन्होंने अपना पंचन लामा नियुक्त किया है, उसको लगा रहे हैं, उसको आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं। ठीक। और पूरा जो बुद्धिज्म है उसको मिटाने के चक्कर में, और उसको कम्युनिज्म के साथ बदली करने के चक्कर में है। राइट। ओके। राइट, प्लीज कैरी ऑन आपा।
Okay, and then I spoke about the communist functionaries' initiatives, communist authorities in Tibet's initiative and the increased role of the United Front Work Department and Public Security Bureau in Tibet. So what so, if you look at the trajectory of protests in Tibet, all the major or significant demonstrations against CCP's rule in Tibet, particularly in 1959, the uprisings in 1987 to 89, and in 2008, and the number of self-immolations. There were a lot of monks and nuns who had taken part in this protests and who have self-immolated against China's rule. So, because of that, the Chinese Communist authorities have, intensified their restrictions in monastic institutions. So, what they do is, they consider the Tibetan monks and nuns as troublemaker, quote unquote, active agents or troublemakers. So they see this dual, role of monks and nuns. Uh, Either they are active agents or troublemakers in delegitimizing China's rule in Tibet, or they can be, a unifying force for common Tibetans with the Communist Party. So that's why the role of the communist authorities have increased the role of United Front Work Department, uh, especially in so they have established this monastic management cadres in parties. They have kept stationed police officers in within monastery, which was never used to be the case earlier, pre 1959. And then a lot of regular and random inspections are being carried out by the United Front Work Department officials to not only to religious institutions but also to people's homes, then villages and towns. And then they hold regular, these officials of the United Front Work Department holds regular meetings with party cadres and then party officials stationed in villages across Tibet.
राइट, या कैरी ऑन।
Next slide. Oh,
या
okay. Yeah, and then finally, the would I will focus on how China has increased their attention to Tibet's border with India. So, when Xi Jinping visited Tibet in July 2021, um, he spoke about consolidating and securitizing Tibet's borders. He also, advised common people to resettle in the borders. And so there's this phrase that the communist parties include party members use, that is gekap kyong war ngola thansam kyong gobatang thansam kyong war ngola ngebatu phe telin goba. So Xi Jinping as well as party members often use this phrase that to stabilize the country, it is important to stabilize the borders, and to stabilize border, it is important to stabilize, to maintain stability and stability on Tibet's border. So this phrase is often used by the Chinese Communist, officials. And if you look at the 20th Party Congress, which was held recently, out of the 20 representatives of Tibetan ethnicity, uh, there were six, representatives from border regions of Hoka, Shikatsi, Ninti, and Ngari. And then, as part of encouraging people to take root, as Xi Jinping said, or resettle in border areas, they give subsidies to border residents. Then sometimes they force people to relocate to border areas. And then the tar, even the focus increased focus to Tibet's border can be seen from the TAR's budget. So the overall budget of TAR has decreased actually from 358.08 billion to 300.76 billion yuan, compared to 2022. But the number of projects and funds for border related infrastructure and projects have increased from 2.96 billion yuan in 2022 to 3.53 billion yuan in 2023.
So they're making a lot of improvement in the border. ये इन्होंने जैसे बताया इसमें पूरा ये जी जिनपिंग का पॉलिसी है कि सॉलिडिफिकेशन ऑफ द बॉर्डर। और ये सॉलिडिफिकेशन ऑफ द बॉर्डर में क्या है कि पूरे जो गांव इन्होंने नया बनाया है बॉर्डर के साथ साथ, और जो बजट है जो बाकी ट्रिब्यूट में कम करके ये बॉर्डर के ऊपर लगा रहे हैं, राइट। और ये जो 20 पार्टी कांग्रेस में, टोटल 20 पार्टी कांग्रेस में तिब्बत के लिए 20 रिप्रेजेंटेटिव थे, उसमें 6 जो है ये बॉर्डर एरिया से भेजा गया है, यानी कि बॉर्डर के ऊपर ज्यादा ये कर रहा है। और बॉर्डर के अंदर जो है निवासियों को फोर्सफुली ये वहां जाने के और रिलोकेशन कर रहा है ताकि वहां रह सके। और ये एक और चीज है जो इस स्लाइड में नहीं है, और इसमें चाइना ने ये इस इलाके के ऊपर एक सॉवरेनिटी लॉ लगा दिया है। सॉवरेनिटी लॉ का मतलब क्या है कि ये पूरा एरिया जो है वो चाइना के लिए सॉवरन है, उसका हिस्सा है। इसका मतलब इसमें कोई भेदभाव नहीं है, ना मतभेद है, राइट। और ये जो बॉर्डर प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करने से ये रोकता है, क्योंकि ये अभी जो चाइना जो भी बोलेगा कल के दिन बॉर्डर के ऊपर, वो बोलता है कि भाई ये हमारा इलाका है, ये हमारे लिए सॉवरन है। तो ये एक बड़ा चिंताजनक चीज है जिसके साथ हमें निपटना पड़ेगा। और इन्होंने जो बताया है खास करके विद फिगर्स, ये दर्शाता है कि जी जिनपिंग और चाइना हमारा बॉर्डर के ऊपर काफी ये जोर दे रहे हैं, राइट।
Yeah. So, if you look at this picture, the elderly lady on the right of the screen is so there was this family in Yume in Hunza County of Hoka, a border region, so not very far from the border region of India. So this family of father and two daughters, they wrote to Xi Jinping in 2017, and So they spoke about. So they were very like the this place. You may had only few households, including this family. So the father of the family, Mr. Sange Tempa. So he wrote to Xi Jinping and he told them that this is like the place is very they are not facilities, modern facilities, and then there are no proper roads, and then there are no schools. So he wrote to Xi Jinping in 2017 and told him that we are protecting the border from foreign occupation, and we have been guarding the border for many years. So Xi Jinping replied to this family, and since then, the attention that this family and the few households in Yume, uh, so they attention given to them have been immense. So they now this Doka has become a party member, and they have relocated people, Tibetans from other parts of Tibet, to Yume and told them to settle in Yume and become quote unquote garden of the sacred land and builders of happy homes. So they have become, this lady has become a sort of model. Her pictures are on websites, local website, and on websites of other prefectures and cities. And so often the communist Chinese leaders tells people to follow the example of this lady and this family, and then protect the borders from foreign occupation. So she has sort of become a model since Xi Jinping responded to her father's letter in 2017. And yeah, and then so with this I end my conclusion. But before ending, I would recite this poem. Translated by High Peaks Pure Earths and written by Sangdo, who is based in Tibet. So he wrote this poem after a self-immolation. And so this as you can see this the poem reads as follow: the sadness of living is more painful than death. Unbearable sorrow turns you all into glowing red skeletons. The mouth quivers with flames, the hands are pierced with flames, flames burn in the breast, roasted beads of fire scatter to the ground. Look at the smoke rising from the monastery's golden roof. Look at the doors of each monk's cell. In every moment, after a storm bursts on one grassland, another storm bursts on the other grassland. Following the direction of the wind, dark shadows move accordingly. So this poem, as I said, was written after a self-immolation, but this pretty much, sums up the current situation of Tibet and of Tibetans under China's, occupation. So with this, I end my conclusion. Thank you, sir.
थैंक यू अपा जी, आपने बहुत अच्छा आपने हमें समझाया। एक्चुअली ये जो लास्ट पोएम जो आपने बताया, इससे जाहिर होता है, एक्चुअली मैं बताऊं तो ये तिब्बत का दुख भरी कहानी है ये, राइट, जिसमें जुल्म हुआ है इनके साथ चाइना के कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी वालों से, राइट। और ये पोएम लिखा गया है एक व्यक्ति जो अपने आप को जलाया था, उसके बाद इसमें लिखा है। और ये इस पोएम को पढ़ने के बाद हमें पता चलता है एक्चुअली इसका क्या दिल के अंदर है, उन्होंने बाहर रखा, किस तरीके से ये चाइना वाले तिब्बतन्स, पूरा बुद्धिज्म तिब्बतन और इनका बॉर्डर एरिया या पूरा इस इलाके में किस तरीके से ये इनके साथ इतना बदसलूक व्यवहार कर, राइट, ओके। तो इसके साथ मैं हर वक्त, जैसे मैं चाइना के बारे में जब भी बोलता हूँ, राइट, इन्होंने थैंक यू भी बोल दिया। हम हम बोलते हैं थैंक यू टू आपा फॉर दिस वंडरफुल प्रेजेंटेशन विच यू हैव गिवन फ्रॉम द हार्ट, right? So kind of you, Apa, which you have explained what how communist China is behaving with a peaceful community and a beautiful community called the Tibetans. Right? मैं काफी मिल चुका हूँ, मेरा मेल मिलाप काफी हो चुका है टिबेटन्स के साथ, और मैं जानता हूँ जो इन्होंने बोला है इसमें ये पहली बार मैंने नहीं सुना, काफी बार सुना हूँ, पर आप लोग जो सुन रहे हैं और आप लोग जो वीडियो देखेंगे आपके लिए शायद पहली बार है, और उन्होंने बिल्कुल सच बोला है। ओके, अभी जिस तरीके से हम हर वक्त बताते आते हैं कि हमने सुना है इनकी तरफ से कि क्या इनका हिस्सा है, मतलब पूरा तिब्बत के बारे में। मैं एक जल्दीफाइड तिब्बत के बारे में बात करूंगा, जो नॉर्मली मैं साउथ चाइना मॉर्निंग पोस्ट या और कोई इससे वो कैसे सोचते हैं चाइना वाले तिब्बत के बारे में, वो कैसे अपने पत्रकार न्यूज़पेपर्स में दर्शाते हैं तिब्बत को। ये है पिक्चर जो आया, जो 2021 में जी जिनपिंग जब पहली बार तिब्बत गया था। ये पहली बार ही नहीं, ये 30 साल के बाद कोई ऐसे इतना बड़ा व्यक्ति या जनरल सेक्रेटरी ऑफ द पार्टी और चाइना का प्रेसिडेंट 30 साल के बाद तिब्बत में आया, और इसने बहुत बड़ा इसका एक शो बनाया। उस दिन एक दिन अचानक ये पहुंच गया, बिना किसी को बताया सब कुछ। और ये रिपोर्ट किया था उस वक्त साउथ चाइना मॉर्निंग पोस्ट ने कि व्हाट वाज द मैसेज जी जिनपिंग वाज ट्राइंग टू सेंड जब ये तिब्बत गए, राइट। और इन्होंने क्या इसमें दिखाया है कि ये एक संकेत दे रहे थे कि इंडिया को, यूएसए को और दलाई लामा को कि भाई ये तिब्बत मेरा है, आपको नहीं आने देंगे, राइट। और ये एक मोनेस्ट्री भी गए थे, और इससे काफी इन्होंने एक्चुअली बताया कि मेरा चाइना के ऊपर, सॉरी तिब्बत के ऊपर पूरा ग्रिप है, ये संकेत दे रहे थे, राइट। बाद में ये रिपोर्ट आया, ये 2022 का रिपोर्ट है कि चाइना क्या कर रहा है। उस चाइना इज सिस्टमैटिकली डिनाइंग एक्सेस टू तिब्बत एज पर यूएस स्टेट डिपार्टमेंट। इसका मतलब सबको रोक रहे हैं, कोई वहां जाने ना पाए, कोई असलियत ना पहचाने, कोई किसी को परमिशन नहीं देते हैं। जो कॉलोनियल स्कूल्स वगैरह जो जिसके बारे में अपा जी ने बताया, उसको देखने के लिए इनको किसी को परमिशन नहीं मिलता, राइट। और ये जो पैंडेमिक के टाइम में, ये पैंडेमिक मेजर्स चाइना के लिए बहुत अच्छा टाइम था, क्योंकि उस वक्त सबको मना कर दिया कि भाई आप तिब्बत में कुछ नहीं, जा ही नहीं सकते हो। और वो 2-2.5 साल में इन्होंने जो अत्याचार तिब्बत के अंदर किया वो अनगिनत है, राइट। दूसरी बात यह है कि चाइना का जो तिब्बतन कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी, ये 2021 का रिपोर्ट है, इन्होंने बड़ा क्लियर टारगेट किया रिलीजन एंड सेपरेटिज्म, और जिसका पूरा डिटेल्स आपा जी ने आप हमें सब बताया। और ये बोलते हैं कि भाई जो तिब्बतन बुद्धिज्म है वो चाइनीज कल्चर के एक हिस्सा है, और इसीलिए हम आपको पूरा चाइना का कल्चर आपके ऊपर तोपेंगे, और खास करके कम्युनिस्ट कल्चर तोपने का ये इनका पूरा इरादा ही नहीं है। इन्होंने एक प्रोग्राम बनाया और इसको अमल भी किया है। ओके, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट है इनका रिपोर्ट, राइट, कि क्या इज दलाई लामा सेट टू बिकम अ रिलिक ऑफ तिब्बत's पास्ट, राइट। इसका मतलब ब्रिजिंग का प्रोपेगेंडा, पिकिंग का प्रोपेगेंडा ये है कि चाइना का प्रोपेगेंडा कि दलाई लामा को कंप्लीट पिक्चर से हटा दिया जाए। जैसे मैंने पहले ही बताया, मैंने रिपोर्ट्स देखा है और चाइना का स्पोक्समैन भी बोलते हुए देखा है कि दलाई लामा जो नोबेल प्राइज लॉरिएट है, उसको टेररिस्ट नियुक्त किया गया है चाइना वालों की तरफ से, राइट। और जो भी दलाई लामा बोलते हैं उसके विपरीत बात होता है। जो भी प्रस्ताव दलाई लामा साहब रखते हैं शांति के लिए या टिबेटन ऑटोनॉमी के लिए या तिब्बत को और तिब्बतन्स को और तिब्बतन बुद्धिज्म को बचाने के लिए, उसके विपरीत काम होता है चाइना की तरफ से। और लास्ट जो दलाई लामा इन्होंने रिपोर्ट दिया है, चाइना साउथ चाइना मॉर्निंग पोस्ट का रिपोर्ट है कि नेक्स्ट दलाई लामा कुड कम फ्रॉम इंडिया, एक्साइल्ड स्पिरिचुअल लीडर सेज, एज ही वांट्स दैट सक्सेसर chosen by China won't be trusted. इसका मतलब क्या है? चाइना ने पहले ही पंचन लामा को अपने यहाँ खुद नियुक्त किया है, उनका अपना बनाया हुआ है, उनका जो ऑलरेडी कम्युनिस्ट चाइना की ओर जो झुक रहा है उसको इन्होंने पंचन लामा नियुक्त किया है, जिसने बोला ग्यालसन नोरबू। अभी क्या कर रहे हैं कि ये इनका पूरा प्लान है कि अगला दलाई लामा, राइट, अगला दलाई लामा चाइना चूज करेगी। इसका मतलब वो आज चाइना का कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी नियुक्त करेगी कौन दलाई लामा होगा, राइट। और ये रिपोर्ट ये रिपोर्ट में काफी कोट है, क्योंकि दलाई लामा ने कभी ये नहीं बताया कि अगला दलाई लामा इंडिया से होगा, पर जैसे जिस तरीके से इन्होंने ये साउथ चाइना मॉर्निंग पोस्ट वालों ने रिपोर्ट किया है, उससे दे आर मेकिंग अ ग्राउंड सो दैट they can nominate a Dalai Lama from China of their choice, like they did with the Panchen Lama. This is the first case almost in history where a communist party is converting a religion into communism systematically. This is one of the rare cases where uh, the Chinese people and the Communist Party are slowly eradicating Tibetan and Buddhism. They're different. Tibetan is different, Buddhism is different. They're eradicating Tibetan culture and completely erasing it from the Tibetan people. And they're also interfering with Buddhism and making it into a communist religion. Right? This is a dangerous thing. We've heard a lot of it from Apa. We'll take a few questions, right? And this is where our Jaldify ends. Okay. So, Appa will take on a few questions. You've gone about and explained to us everything in full detail. If you have a question which you don't want to answer, you can say so. I'll answer it. Okay? Right. So, the first question is Qinghai a part of Tibet? What has PRC gained by separating it from Tibet? If given a choice, would Tibetans like to join the Union of Republic of India? You can answer whichever way you want, and if you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer.
So the first part of the question is Shanghai a part of Tibet? So yes, Shanghai, what is now known as Shanghai, includes a large part of Amdo, eastern Tibet. So yes, it is part of Tibet. Then
What PRC gained by separating it from Tibet?
PRC had actually incorporated a large area of Tibet into Shanghai. So actually, they have incorporated, and then given a choice, would Tibetans like to join the Union of the Republic? I don't know, sir. I can't really
No,
say.
I can understand you don't want to answer it. Let me answer that for you, right? I
I
don't
think
think,
Tibet. So Tibet was in independent country,
and
um,
it will remain so.
and yeah, and it's a country of long history, culture, identity, and if give like, so we are seeking, freedom from China. China has illegally occupied Tibet, and that's what Tibetans want. So we want
Yeah, I
our
agree with
country
you
back.
completely.
We want a country as it was before 1959, before China's occupation. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't think it is in India's interest or design to annex Tibet or make Tibet as part of the Republic of India. We would like, ideally, Tibet to be an independent country, right? Though at this point of time, the government of India recognizes Tibet as part of China because that's the official position, right? But at the same time, most Indians feel that Tibet is an independent country. I have myself written about this. मैंने बहुत लिखा है कि तिब्बत क्यों इंडिपेंडेंट कंट्री है और तिब्बत चाइना का हिस्सा नहीं है, राइट। और इसके बारे में और किसी प्रोग्राम में मैं डॉक्यूमेंट्रली प्रूव करूंगा क्यों तिब्बत कभी चाइना का हिस्सा नहीं था। आज मैंने सिर्फ जिक्र किया, और उन्होंने जो आपा जी ने आज बताया सिर्फ वही चीज के बारे में बताया जो 18 पार्टी कांग्रेस से शी जिनपिंग का क्या रवैया है, और ये इतिहास में नहीं गए, वो किसी और दिन देखेंगे। ओके, next question. After Chinese takeover in the 1950s, we have third generation Tibetans growing under communist propaganda. Do they even think of PRC as an occupation force? इसका कहने का मतलब, do they think they are part of China, the people who are living there?
Not really, sir. As if we look at the demographic of Tibetans who have self-immolated against China's rule, out of 168, a large majority of them, even the first self-immolated, for instance, he was just 20 years old, Tape from Kitty Monastery. He had never seen the Dalai Lama. He was born after Tibet was illegally occupied by China. Yet he had, sacrificed his life for the freedom of Tibet and for the against the illegal occupation of Tibet by China. So yeah, like Tape, like other youngsters or third generations of Tibetans in Tibet, although they may not express it like some of the protesters or self-immolators have done, but in their hearts, even as someone who have come from Tibet, I know that they do recognize and they have a strong sense of Tibetan nationalism, uh, and they do realize, that Tibet is. They know that Tibet is occupied by China. Tibet is not part of China. So that I would say to this question.
Okay, thank you. Right. Next question is simple. You can say it in yes or no. Has Dalai Lama named his successor?
Dalai Lama named his successor. No.
No. Yeah, that's it. We'll leave it at that. Okay. Let's assume a scenario where Indian army gets into some area of Tibet. What would be reaction of Tibetans in China in that scenario? As we are learning Ukraine war, local people, as we are learning in Ukraine war, local people's opinion matter. The short question is, if tomorrow there's a war, will Tibetans help the Indian army?
Tibetan army?
No, Indian army.
No. Would local Tibetans
Yeah.
or
Would
okay.
local Tibetans help Indian army in case there's a war tomorrow with China? That's the answer. That's it.
I think that's a very hypothetical question.
Yeah.
And as it is, Tibetans do not have the basic fundamental rights to express their opinion. They don't have the freedom of
Talk.
basic human rights. They do not have the freedom to express, freedom to opinion, freedom to every, like, all the civil and all civil and political rights are not you know available to them. They can't practice all civil and political rights. So their reaction would be again controlled by the um, Chinese
Yeah,
authorities.
I agree with you. They can't. It's unfair of them. Unfair of us. Your mic has been muted. Yeah, it's unfair on our part to expect कि हम चाहते हैं कि टिबेटन्स हमें हेल्प करें, क्योंकि अगर वो खुलेआम आके
But
बोलेंगे उनके ऊपर अत्याचार होगा, राइट?
but yes, sir. If I may add,
Yeah,
in India, as you, I'm sure you are aware of it, the Special Frontier Force (SFF)
Yeah, we'll not talk of it.
yeah.
राइट, तो जो राइट, तो जहां तक होगा सहानुभूति तो होगा, जहां तक हो सकता है मेरे को पूरा उम्मीद है और यकीन है कि ये जो तिब्बत के निवासी हैं, वक्त आने पर अगर हालात ठीक है तो हमें मदद करेंगे। हमें उतना आत्मविश्वास होना चाहिए। Right. This is a question for me. What does it mean to key in your questions? Raj Kamal, the idea of saying key in your question कि भाई आपका अपना question लिख के chat box में डालिए। Keying in the question मतलब टाइप करके key in करना और कुछ नहीं। Okay. Now, Arindam Mishra says, Madam, just wanted to know if there is a resistance to these Chinese efforts by the locals.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So as I spoke in my presentation, there are resistance against China's rule by the Tibetans. If we look at the trajectory of protests against China's rule, even in 1959 there was a huge uprising, initiated by Tibetans, common Tibetans, against China's rule. Then in 1987 to 89 there was a protest against China's rule, and then in 2009 they were a pan Tibet movement against China. And then in 2000, starting 2009, there was this new wave of protests in the form of self-immolations. So yes, there are resistance against China's rule by Tibetans in Tibet. Um, um, although the surveillance systems, the Orwellian kind of surveillance systems, are installed to monitor all the activities of Tibetans. Yet Tibetans, express their dissent, their protest in the form of self-immolation, in the form of songs, in the form of poems and essays. Yeah, through different means and ways, the Tibetans do resist. And continue to resist China's illegal occupation of Tibet.
Yeah. Good. The next question. Can Tibetans fight for independence from China? Is it militarily possible? Is there any future possibility of independence from China? Tibet's population is too small to take on 1.3 billion China. Don't answer it. Look, we all know कि ये हो नहीं सकता. अगर ये हो सकता तो कब के ये बात हो जाता. So there is no point talking about this, right? ये,
Yeah, if I can add, sir.
yeah, please add, carry on.
Yeah. So the question is, can Tibetans fight for independence? So we know, sir, that politics and history are as constant as change. It changes. All the time. And if we look at the world history, there was this disintegration of Soviet Union. People never thought that Soviet Union would disintegrate, and then we would. We have many people have never imagined the kind of overthrow of dictators across West Asia, starting again in 2011. So one never know, that politics may change, anything may happen. Changes may happen in China itself. One would never know. So we may get independence. I think
No, no,
one
I
has
agree
to,
with you.
yeah, hope for the
Yeah,
best.
या लाइक ये हिस्ट्री है कि जब भी चाइना का बोलबाला तगड़ा था और चाइना का एम्पायर टफ था, तो इनको टिबेट वाज इंडिपेंडेंट whenever Tibet was part of China in some form. When the Chinese empire was weak, Tibet was always independent. हो सकता है कल के दिन चाइना का जो एम्पायर, जो शी जिनपिंग का और इसका एम्पायर गिर जाए, उस वक्त टिबेट इंडिपेंडेंट हो सकता है, राइट?
Yes, and we also know that India gained independence after 200 years.
यस, तो टाइम
So Yeah.
Correct. I think that's a very important point you have made. Yeah, that's a very important point कि वक्त का पता नहीं क्या होगा कल के दिन. Okay. What kind of infrastructure has China developed in Tibet, and how does it compare to the infrastructure we have in India?
Um, Infrastructure in Tibet.
Yeah,
So, if we look at the 14th five-year plan of China, a huge amount of, I mean, some trillions of yuan has been allocated for infrastructure developments in the form of railways, roads, then you know, airports, even projects for border development, border consolidation, and border projects. So a lot of infrastructure. If we like, so China, since Xi Jinping came to power in 2012, 624 border defense villages, or what China call as Shaokang villages. So all the 624 border villages have been completed by 2021-22. So the amount of money that China spends on border infrastructure is huge in compared to as compared to India. Although I think India is slowly spending money on border infrastructure. Recently, we have seen this Vibrant Villages program uh, launched by the Home Minister in Arunachal. So, yeah, I think China is spending a lot more, and India also, I think, is slowly catching up.
right. Thanks a lot. Now, once a famous legend said, "You give me your blood, I will give you freedom." Are Tibetans ready to give blood for their freedom? Yeah, they have given. To be very frank, what that's what Apa has been saying. वो बोल रहे थे कि कितने सेल्फ इमुलेशन हो गया. 168 मॉन्क्स ने अपने आप को जला लिया. तो ऐसी बात नहीं है. ये कांपा रिबेलियन देखिए. और 2008 जो बीजिंग ओलंपिक्स होने वाला था, तो उस वक्त भी काफी इन्होंने कष्ट किया, ढिबल,
Bloodshed.
राइट. तो
Yes.
ऐसी बात नहीं है. मेरे को पूरा यकीन है कि टिबेटन्स आर रेडी टू गिव ब्लड फॉर देयर फ्रीडम. उनको बताने की जरूरत नहीं है. इफ यू वांट टू आंसर यू कैन, बट आई एम वेरी क्लियर दैट टिबेटन्स विल गिव ब्लड इफ दे हैव अ सेंस ऑफ फ्रीडम.
Yes, as you said, sir, 168 Tibetans have, have sacrificed not just their blood but their bodies,
Yeah,
for the freedom of Tibet. And even during the 1959 uprising, 1987, 88, 89 uprising, then 2008, a lot of people have been, killed by the Chinese, authorities during protests. So yes, Tibetans have sacrificed, their
somewhat.
lives for for Tibet's independence.
Yeah, right. That's the last question. This is for me. I'll handle it. What is the progress of rail connectivity between Nepal and Tibet? Is there a chance that in future conflict between India and China, Chinese can massacre Tibets and blame it on India? Look, let me tell you, Shano. First and foremost, the rail connectivity between Nepal and Tibet, it is only in the stage of reconnaissance and feasibility study. वो feasibility study भी शुरू नहीं हुआ है. जब तक ये feasibility study खत्म होगा, ये अगले 5-10 साल हो जाएगा. जब ये feasibility study का परमिशन दी गई थी, एक गवर्नमेंट था नेपाल में, उसके बाद वो गवर्नमेंट चला गया और दूसरा गवर्नमेंट आ गया. तो इसका मतलब वो feasibility study भी वो पीछे चला जाएगा. क्या चाइना टिबेटन्स को मैसेकर करके ब्लेम इट ऑन इंडिया हो सकता है? नहीं हो सकता. ये तो वहां है, हम यहाँ हैं. चाइना और इंडिया का जो लड़ाई है बॉर्डर के ऊपर होना है. तो चाइना वाले टिबेटन को मार के हमारे ऊपर कैसे डालेंगे? ये हो नहीं सकता. ठीक है ना. तो ये ऐसी चीज कल्पना की बात है. तो उतना दूर सोचने की जरूरत नहीं है. राइट. ओके, इस ओके, ये हमने तकरीबन इन जितने भी क्वेश्चंस हैं इसके जरिए हमने पूरा पूरा कवर कर लिया है, राइट? देयर आर नॉट नो मोर क्वेश्चंस व्हिच आर डिफरेंट फ्रॉम ऑल द क्वेश्चंस वी हैव गॉट सो फार, सो विल स्टॉप द थिंग हियर। और मैं लास्ट में यही बताना चाहता हूं कि राइट, कि आपा जी आज उन्होंने हकीकत बताया हमें कि तिब्बत में क्या हो रहा है और चाइना वाले कैसे तिब्बत के समाज को बदल रहे हैं, इनका कल्चर को बदल रहे हैं, राइट? और हम सब we are grateful to you, Appa, for having come. I would like to read out what Anuradha has said. I really appreciate Appa coming here and speaking out for Tibetans and your community. More power to you, madam. Thanks, Colonel Ravi Shankar ji, for making it possible. It's my job, right? So don't worry about it, Anuradha. Thanks a lot for your sentiment. On behalf of you and everyone, we thank Appa for having come. We will invite her again to talk on a different topic as far as China, India, and Tibet relations are concerned. I've also requested her कि और कोई तिब्बत के बारे में हमारे चैनल में आके बात करना चाहते हैं तो जरूर आके कीजिए. This is my sincere request to you, Appa. Please, you could tell it to your Sikyong also. If you want, he can also come and speak to me. I have no problem. Okay. And since you're going to meet him on 27th, and any one of your functionary can come and speak. You know me, you can get in touch with me. So if you have anything to say on the final, you can say. After that, I'll close the show.
Okay. So thank you so much, sir, for inviting me to speak on China's Tibet policy since the 18th Party Congress. I hope through my presentation, people who have not heard of China's illegal occupation of Tibet or who have interest on the Tibet question have gained something or learn something from my presentation.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Appa. I can see a lot of people, Rahul, Shanu Mishra, Gaurav, they all thank you, basically, right? So you have achieved a lot today. You have explained to us so many things in great detail. I'm grateful to you. I'm also grateful to all the viewers who have seen it, and I'm grateful to all those people who will see it further. आप कृपया गना शॉट को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए और वो बेल बटन वगैरह दबाइए सो दैट मोर पीपल कैन सी दिस एंड वी कैन ग्रो. और चाइना का असलियत जो है मैं आपके सामने लाके खड़ा करना चाहता हूँ. Thank you. Good evening and Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. Okay, a last question I'll take. He says, how much mineral wealth China extracted from Tibet? Have they extracted?
Yes, sir, definitely. I don't have the exact figures,
Details,
but
but they have
yeah,
extracted. I'm sure they
yes,
have
yes.
extracted quite a bit.
So,
Okay.
yes, sir. So they have extracted. Recently, there was this report that Hunzi County of Loka
Yeah.
was a source of rich minerals, including gold.
Okay.
And China has extracted a huge amount of minerals, gold, uranium, lithium, not just in Hunzi but other parts of Tibet. And there are some also a lot of books on how China has extracted minerals, and then from Tibet, and then like any colonizer, have
Taken
took
it
a
away.
yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks once again. Once again, Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir.